This is a famous ship, not too far away. There's even more famous ship, the HMS Victory, when Lord Nelson defeated the French at the Battle of Trafalgar. Would you say that was the peak of British might, of British Empire, that battle, that time, 1805?
Well, that's a crucial turning point because the English and the French had different approaches towards war at sea, and Nelson triumphed by virtue of using the principle of what he called annihilation. There's also other dimensions taken into account, such as the attitude of the French officer corps in the Navy and so forth. But the real irony was that having defeated the combined Franco-Spanish fleet and having pushed the Dutch to one side, the English now, having acquired the most powerful navy in the world, had nobody to use it against. So we actually go from being a warlike power to being the sort of world's policeman, as it were.
Rule Britannia.
Rule Britannia, yes.
Yeah. And it was a sea battle. What did it say about the position of the Navy within the British Armed Forces?
Well, the Navy was always liked. The sailors were incredibly popular. There was a much stronger feeling of patriotism on behalf of the sailors than there was, for example, on behalf of the soldiers. And the Navy always saw itself as being quite literally the senior service.
When did the Navy start to lose its dominance within the armed forces?
Within the armed forces, I suspect by the time we get to the end of World War II, because by then the Navy is really in a state of exhaustion. They pledged an awful lot of money during or in the run-up to World War I. Only just in time did we have the Grand Fleet constructed, and that had helped to drain a considerable amount of public resources. But it was Fisher's idea because Fisher could see that war was coming and that it would come from Germany and it wouldn't necessitate having a navy spread all over the world. So he said, let's pull a lot of the navy back, let's scrap a lot of the ships. There was one famous occasion where he just wrote across one memo, scrap the lot, which I think related to about 154 ships.
Unimaginable, though, in those days, of the Warrior, of the Victory, to make such a decision.
Oh yes.
Without ships, you were nothing as a military might.
No. But what he did realise, well, in his view, you could only fight a war with 4 types of vessel. He said we don't need all the rest. And because of the prolonged period of peace after 1815, we'd carried on building ships where there was very little in the way of uniformity, there was little in the way of uniformity of training. What they had was a substantial navy which could send gunboats almost anywhere, so that on one occasion when an Archbishop of Canterbury asked for a gunboat to be sent to Borneo to protect the missionaries, they could do it. But it became a navy that became sort of, if you like, overconfident. It looked good, there was a lot of spit and polish, but when you began to probe a little more deeply, it wasn't quite as efficient as everybody thought.
How would you describe the function then as of the Navy after the First World War, actually now?
No, I think it's much more a matter of peacekeeping, trying to solve some of the world's other problems, defending some of our far-flung colonial possessions or Commonwealth possessions. But we don't, I think, engage now in the idea that we will put to sea and deliver some devastating blow to the enemy, because effectively you don't know who the enemy is anymore at the end of the Cold War. But that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't be unprepared.
Could you do without them?
No, because we're an island nation. And if you look at the sheer amount of food that we import, if you look at the amount of supplies that we bring in, it's vitally important to keep the sea lanes open. I mean, if you think in World War I, when submarine technology was still crude, the German Navy came within 6 weeks of starving this country out. It still has a crucial role to play.
But would you need then a big aircraft carrier to do that work? That's a key question then, isn't it?
Well, I think it depends on where you want to deliver the blow. And the aircraft carrier does give you the flexibility. Without them, and without long-range aircraft, you've got a rather different set of problems.
What's an aircraft carrier without aircraft?
Vulnerable in my view.
That's what's going to happen now.
Oh yes. I mean, one of the carriers won't have aircraft on it until 2020. So you have this ironic situation where we have two aircraft carriers, but no aircraft flying from them.
So where is it going now? We've seen cuts now in the Navy again. They decided to keep the carriers. How do you see it change, the function of it? Is it going to change, or did they try to keep it as strong as possible?
I think they've tried to keep it as strong as possible within the constraints that they face. I mean, after any situation of danger, there has always been a naval cutback. You've only got to look at the way in which the size of the Navy reduced after the Napoleonic Wars, then after World War I, and then after World War II. But I think it does require a tremendous amount of complex calculation as to how best to deliver any sort of blow, whether it's offensive or defensive. It's not something you can dream up on the back of an envelope.
They made the right decisions.
I think so, yes. We need more money to finance it all.